In this video, I'll show you how to create a basic Elysia server with one GET and one POST route. If this video is helpful, then you may want to check out the full course I made on Bun and Elysia using the link in the description. Alright, let's start by opening a folder in VS Code, as I have open here, and then let's install Bun. Now you should already have Bun installed if you've been playing around with it. Install -g bun. I'm not going to do that because I already have it installed. Once you've executed that and it's done, then we're going to create using the bun create command. And we're going to tell it specifically we want it to use the Elysia framework, and then we just give our app a name, for example, app. And you'll notice it downloads everything we need. And over here in the file explorer, you can see that we have a subfolder of app with our app inside. So in order to actually run anything in there, we're going to cd into that with cd app. Let's clear the screen so there's some space. And we're going to look at package.json, which should have a scripts object. And inside there we have dev. This, if when we run it using npm, will run our Elysia server and watch for changes to files, which is what the -- watch flag does. So we're going to run npm run dev. And that tells us that Elysia is running at localhost 3000. Okay, and if I go into, for example, where's my index? In source, index.ts, if I just change something in here and I save it, you'll notice that down here, everything gets automatically reloaded. Okay, so we have our index.ts. Now, what did I say at the beginning? I'm going to give you one GET and one POST route. But I'm also going to give you the correct architecture for it. A lot of people, when they're starting out, will just shove their route into here, into the main entry point index, which obviously is not a great way of organizing your code. So what we're going to do is go into source. We're going to right click new folder. We're going to create a routes folder. And then inside of routes, we're going to have a new file, and we're just going to call this Pokemon.ts. Okay, so now we have a bit of structure. What we're going to do in this file is we're going to define all of our routes. So first of all, we have to import Elysia itself. And because we created this using the Elysia command in bun, it's there automatically. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new object called Pokemon routes, and we're going to define the routes in it. Now I'm just going to copy this straight in, and if you want to actually type this out, then go ahead and pause the video. Right, now I'll explain what's going on here. We've created a constant, and later on we're going to export that so it's available to other JavaScript files or TypeScript files. We're telling it we want to create a new Elysia object. This is what actually boots up the server bit of this particular route. Okay, we tell it we want a prefix of /Pokemon. So this prefix will actually be added to any base addresses that are defined wherever we import this Pokemon.ts route. And this is really handy because then you don't have to define this over in your index.ts, for example, but you can do that if you prefer to. There are two ways of doing everything in JavaScript. Then we define our routes, and this is a simple get route to the base level of this particular route. So when I type localhost 3000 / Pokemon, I'm going to get this homepage for Pokédex. Welcome. Okay. Then if you've used Express before, you'll notice I've also got a get route here with a :id. That means that ID is actually a variable or a URL parameter that gets passed in. And of course, you can use that to go and do something. In this case, it would go off to a database, it would get a Pokemon's data and return it to the end user. Then finally, we have a post route. Now you'll notice this post route has the same endpoint as the top get route. That doesn't matter because when the server encounters a request, it looks at the HTTP verb. If it says post, it's going to call this and obviously not that. And if it gets a get, it'll call the top one and not the post one. Now, what I've done here is just to find some strings that will be returned just so we can see it in action. In reality, you would actually have probably separate controller folder with Pokemon.ts in that, or a separate database folder, or however you like to structure things, where you would actually perform the business logic of this application. But for now, we're just taking a shortcut because you just want to see what's going to happen here. Now, what do we have to do? One final thing, we need to export those Pokemon routes so they now become available wherever we need them. Okay, and where we're going to use them is we're going to go to our index.ts. I am simply going to remove everything and start again. I'm going to start by importing Pokeroutes from routes/Pokemon, and just make sure, see, I've put the wrong variable in there. Pokemon routes, I'm going to change that to Pokemon routes from there. So now we have our routes available. Let's go and create a brand new application using Elysia. So const app equals new Elysia, and if you fill the autocomplete, we can actually import Elysia again, which we did have before. So now our server is created, but it's not actually going to do anything yet because we haven't told it what routes to use and, more importantly, what port to listen to. And that's simple enough. We take that app object and we do the following. We add a group into that. And when we say group, what we're telling Elysia is that I have a batch of routes for you from a particular file. So I can have as many routes as I like, and Elysia will group all of those together. And we're going to tell it we're actually going to use the Pokemon routes. So Elysia will go ahead and parse all of that. So now when I go to localhost 3000/Pokemon, it knows which route file to open and what routes therefore to execute. And finally, we tell it, I would like you to listen on my environment port variable, if there is one, or failing that, just go to port 3000. So we don't have any environment variables set up in here, so it's not actually going to do that, but it's going to do 3000. So down in our terminal, we are going to add another console. So in the first one, we're running the app. In the second one, we're doing some bits and pieces. We are going to curl to localhost 3000, and you'll see that that's not found. That's because there is no definition for the home page on this. We only gave it a group, and that group has part of the URL that needs to be Pokemon, right? So if I wanted that home definition, I could either put it directly in here with a .get, or I could create another file in a different route somewhere for a home route.ts or something like that. Okay, so that's fair enough. Now let's check that our /Pokemon actually works. And you'll notice down here, we have homepage for Pokedex, welcome. Okay, that's pretty clear. Now what if we do localhost /Pokemon/99? And that will get the Pokemon by ID. So if we go back to the Pokemon.ts, you'll see that it's using that as a variable. And if we wanted to, we could actually return that in the response. But if you want to know more about how to do that and how to validate URL parameters, then see my course link in the description. Okay, the final route for us to test is, of course, the post route. So we want /Pokemon, and with curl, we have -x post, and that will define the HTTP verb. And that tells us we're going to create a Pokemon, which is exactly the response we expect from our post route. Now, obviously, you can add any information you like to the body of a post request, and if you'd like to see that, how to enforce schema, and much, much more, then check out my course at the link in the description.